everybody. Welcome. I'm Jennifer Truitt, and I am honored to be here today with Jim Sheils, who is the author of a book that we're so excited to share with you. I'm going to hold it up for a second here. It's called The Family Board Meeting, and I read this book and loved it. And I know as did many of our Ziglar family team members, so we wanted to bring Jim here today to tell you guys about the book and give you some really awesome food for thought. And I thought then that I would start out by saying welcome to you, Jim, and why don't you just introduce yourself to our community?
Great. Yeah, well, it's kind of an honor because Zig Ziglar has been a hero of mine since I was a little kid. My dad introduced me to him many, many moons ago. So to get the invite for Ziglar family was definitely an honor. I've been a full-time entrepreneur and real estate investor for 17 years. 5 years ago, I started a company called Family Board Meetings, where I've been doing workshops and specialized retreats, mainly with entrepreneur families and their children. And that's pretty much where the board meeting strategy that we'll talk about in the family board meeting came out of. It's kind of our pinnacle strategy that's helped a lot of busy entrepreneurs reconnect where it matters most, and that's at home. So happy to be here, excited to share, and a big fan of Ziglar. So this is an honor all the way around.
Super. Well, we're very glad to have you. And I find that so many people say that they were influenced by Zig Ziglar. Their dad introduced them to Zig Ziglar. And, you know, when he's touched conservatively 250 million people, there's a good chance that people you run into are going to have been influenced by him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure.
Well, you know, I'll just start right in and just let you know, our audience has heard the concept of family meeting. It's a concept, that Mark Tim, who is our Ziglar family CEO, sort of introduced to them. And it's this idea of meeting with your family once a week and sort of planning out the week and maybe even having a special conversation about something like a character trait or an upcoming vacation or things like that. So when I first saw the title of your book, I wondered if it was going to be similar, but then I discovered, no, it's a kind of a different concept than that, even though it still uses that business board meeting idea, like the family meeting idea. And even though I know you're an entrepreneur and it sort of sprang out of an idea for entrepreneurs, it really can apply to every family.
Absolutely.
And so why don't you just tell us a little bit about how it can apply and how it got started?
Sure. Well, it definitely complements Mark's strategy of the weekly family meeting. It's funny, when Mark and I first got introduced through mutual friends, we had, I think, a half-hour call scheduled, and we both continually delayed, canceled our next few calls, and we were on for like 2.5 hours.
Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness.
It was definitely a very kindred spirit right away with the complementary strategies. And the family board meeting is more about separating the parts to strengthen the whole. Family time and family meeting, which is something I do almost every week with my family as well, that Mark teaches, is fantastic. This is more about taking one-on-one quality time with your children. And it also works with spouse, but it really was focused for your sons and daughters, so to make sure that we could get rid of sibling rivalry, that we could get below the surface, and that we would really have clear moments of quality time with them throughout the year. For a lot of us, we're running so fast, it's tough to be consistent. This keeps us consistent. And I found that this simple board meeting strategy and the principles that we use helps both parents reconnect stronger with the children, but especially the one that's really busy at work. It makes sure that they stay grounded, that they're not running up their career hill so hard, so fast that they look around and their closest relationships aren't there, or even worse, they're kind of a stranger to their kids. And I saw that too many times, Jen, and I wanted to see that stopped. And that's really what the board meeting is, the board meeting strategy for family board meetings. It's a simple rhythm that's practiced 4 times a year, once a quarter, with each of your children. And the principles and the results have been astounding. Again, I designed this really just to help my own family. I have 4 children, but it kind of had an underground viral effect that started to work and people started to share. And now here I am with Zig Ziglar's company. So it's a simple rhythm that any family, whether they're an entrepreneur, whether they're in the military, whether they're a busy corporate executive, they can put to work and see results.
Well, and I agree with you. I think it is great for any and every family. So my question, let's just back up a little bit, is did you have a big aha moment yourself where you realized, this is something I have got to change, got to do, or was it, for me, it's maybe more of a little nagging voice, like, am I doing enough? Are we connecting enough? How did you really come to the decision that this needed to happen?
Well, when I first started working with entrepreneur families, I didn't even have my own family. This would have been about 12 years ago. And I think I had, when I was the kid, Jen, when I was 18, I looked like I was 11. So, which is, I guess, better now, but it wasn't great then. But I always had kind of a young look. So when I started going to personal development and entrepreneur events and speaking after having some business success, I was at a funny age between the age of the parents and between the age of the kids. And I started to be getting put into the mediator position on different things. And I thought this was crazy. And I just saw a very common theme, which I talk about in the book and I'll talk about today. It was just, there's no substitute for quality time. And there was not a focused amount of quality time going into the relationships at home. People were getting all these success principles and strategies to succeed in business, but not at home. And I wanted to change that. And then fast forwarding to my own family, I have 4 children. I'm very blessed, 2 adopted, 2 biological. And that makes no difference to me. Either way, you love them the same. But my adoptive kids came into my life when I was running a large real estate investment company, and they were 7 and 5 years old. And that's coming into a young boy's life, like I did my sons at that age, and you're running a busy business. It's like as awkward as asking a girl to dance for the first time at the 7th grade dance. Very awkward. You want it to work. But it was quite awkward. And the strategy came from principles I had been already teaching people kind of as the fun uncle, but now was my chance as a dad. And I'll talk about the results, which you read about in the book, have been life-changing for me and my family. And I wasn't even comfortable sharing them. It was very uncomfortable sharing them, but I felt a duty to share them. And it's helped so many more families now. So the aha really came from things I saw at a very young age. And then the absolute straw breaking the camel's back was my own family and my 2 adoptive sons, where I said, I want a deeper, more meaningful connection. I don't want to be an absentee father.
Right. And that's so important. And we're all glad that happened for you, because that prompted you to share it, like you said. And maybe there were parts of it that were difficult to share, but ultimately I think we can all learn and grow from each other's struggles and difficult moments. So thankful that you did that. So let's just jump in. Why don't you tell us sort of an overview of how it works? We get the idea now it's quality one-on-one time. Why don't we dive in a little bit to that?
Sure. The family board meeting strategy, again, I call it having a board meeting with your child. Coming from the entrepreneur or executive world, we've all heard of board meetings, and we automatically think of like boring 1980s IBM stuffed suits in these dank, dark conference rooms with long spreadsheets. That's not what this is about. And more entrepreneurial groups like your company and other companies now have board meetings, usually on a quarterly basis, for 2 reasons: to reunite the team and to look forward to the next 90 days and reflect on the last 90 days. It's a very nice process if you do it right, and to bring team camaraderie together. And when I came into the life of my sons, I thought, these boys are just as important to me as my largest clients, key team members, and biggest investors in my business. And I need to treat them that way. So I thought, why can't I give them the same respect and have a quarterly board meeting with them each quarter? And so that's pretty much how it came about, where now what I do, and it's been going 6 years strong, actually 7 years now, is every quarter I have a quote unquote board meeting with each one of my children. And it's for a minimum of 4 hours, which I can talk about the reason behind that. And there's only 3 guiding principles, Jen. First is one-on-one, without electronics, and then a fun activity of their choice with focused reflection. Now that might sound a little crazy or hard to understand, but it's not. That's the shortest definition there is in the world for experiential education. And experiential education has been proven to be the most powerful form of education on the planet. We're just using it now to harness it to deepen the relationship with our kids. And this simple rhythm, by doing it over and over, and I'll go into how the principles work together, has not only transformed the relationship I have with my two oldest sons, my younger children, and so many other families now has been incredible. And I can get into how it's kind of like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Once you put it all together, the principles work, and it puts a magnifying glass on each relationship in the family in a positive way, which strengthens the whole.
Okay, well, that sounds easy enough. 3 things. One-on-one. Well, I say easy enough because number 2 makes my little teenage mind go, what? No technology? So we'll come back to that. And then here's where I think it might overrule something they choose to do. Yeah. So is that how you overcome the teenagers and technology thing? You know, that hesitance to detach from their phone for a while?
Yeah, that's a big thing. And actually they all go together, especially with teens. I mean, let's start with the teens. Let's say the parent's been a little bit disconnected. They've had the best intention. They've been working hard, but they haven't had enough time. Everyone, I think at a point will, especially at the teenage, will shy away from one-on-one time, but they really vibe for it. For what I've learned working in multi-day retreats with families is they finally break down. It's not all that outside success I wanted to see you have. I wanted you to be successful with me, to be at home with me. And quality time provides that. So I find when you approach teens and say, look, I've been super busy working. I really want to have more fun with you and just have some time. How about we get together? No one else, not your brothers and sisters, just you and I, do something fun of your choice. If you choose, and I talk about this, maybe we'll miss a day of school. I'll miss a day of work. It starts to intrigue them. They're going to think something's up, but nothing. And they say, well, I don't get it. And say, just want to have a good time together. I want to spend time with you. You're growing up quick and I don't want to miss it. When you're vulnerable and you're sincere like that, you can cut through a lot of the nonsense. And I do say a lot of parents, what I've seen in working with families is we are the worst hypocrites there are. And I've seen this at retreats where we've lined up the kids and the parents on one side and they'll say, how many of you get a hard time from your parents about being on your electronics? The hand goes up, right? Best intentions, we get it. But then, and this is actually Dr. Shafali of Conscious Parenting was teaching this with us. She's a phenomenal teacher. And she said, well, how many of you think your parents are hypocrites? And there were younger kids and they said, what's a hypocrite?
Right.
Explain it to them. And they all went, oh. So they raised their hand that we're saying for them to get off, but we're really not getting off, especially with busy executives and entrepreneur families. I've seen it where sneaking that text, sneaking that last call, 1 minute, pretending like you can hear them when you're doing that email, but you didn't hear a word that they said. So by setting the example to say your phone's going to be off is intriguing. We might not want to admit it is, but it is. And it puts us to our word. And if we're keeping to our word, it holds them to a higher thing. And we're only talking for 4 hours. The world is not going to blow up. Your business should not blow up in 4 hours. We think it's going to, but then when you magically turn the phone back on after 4 hours and some things have worked themselves off and you might have a few voicemails, you're like, okay, that could wait. So the 3 go together. But one of the most powerful things, Jen, and I'll get into that fun activity of their choice a little deeper with focus reflection. But I think the easiest thing here that if they take nothing else away, get one-on-one with your children. Get one-on-one. One-on-one is the secret sauce. It is the magic potion. It gets you below the surface. It so rarely happens, especially if you have a family of, 4, 5, 6, 7. One-on-one time is a rarity. Yes. But what I found is when you separate the parts to strengthen the whole, really incredible things happen. It takes away sibling rivalry. It takes away, if your child naturally leans on your spouse because you haven't been around as much, it takes away that ability to do that. Again, it puts that magnifying glass on that relationship. No siblings, no best friends, no schoolmates, none of that. It's one-on-one. It's just a rarity. And you look at, marital groups. We go on couples retreats, right? Our kids aren't invited, not because we don't love them, but we need time with our spouse, right? Same thing. I feel that a busy mom or dad really needs one-on-one time with their child to get below the surface and reconnect. So if you do nothing else from this, if you start to put in deposits of consistent one-on-one quality time, it can absolutely change the relationship, change how your child views you, open up the ability for you to be the one they go to for advice instead of their friends or the internet. One-on-one time is absolute magic.
I don't disagree. I think that's critical and key. And I wonder, for any members of our audience who are thinking, well, I haven't done this. It's probably too late. What if my kid doesn't respond? What if he or she doesn't open up? Has that ship sailed? Do I need to start young? What would you say to that person? I think to believers who really get and believe, yes, I've got to be one-on-one with my kid and pour into them. But for those who've been neglecting that, how could you encourage them that you can start? It's not that bad. What would you say to them?
Oh, and it's a great question, Jen. I would say, first of all, don't buy that BS that you can't, it's too late to start, because that's what it is. And the biggest thing I found with working with families and parents, you messed up. You made mistakes. The best thing you can do is get over it. If you need to apologize, then apologize. But if you're going to continue to beat yourself up, you can't work with what we have from now forward. And it is the most debilitating thing, the most disrespectful thing you can do to yourself and your child. You weren't perfect. I get it. But let's start where we are now, because it's not too late. I have people that have adjusted our values within the book, where their children were 22 to 30. Okay, so they're already out of the house. So they're not even living at home. So what he decided to do, and he had 6 kids, 6. Okay. He decided to do a board meeting once a year with his children because they were living in different areas of the country. That was 4 years ago. He says it has completely changed the relationship he has within the family. 22 to 30 his children were, 22 to 6 of them. So they were, they had a busy family life, but he was a busy entrepreneur building 2 businesses. He started when the youngest was 22. And he said, I can't do it every quarter, but I will do it once a year. And he says it's been an absolute game changer. So it's never too late. And guess what? Your teen they might be going through some weird hormonal things. They might be going through some struggles at school that we so forget. They might be a little apprehensive, but stay gentle and stay consistent. And I think that they start to open up. Not every time. I can't say we have a 100% track record, but we have a 90-point-something% track record. So I think if people are just patient with themselves and trust in the simplicity of the process, good things can happen.
I love that. Have you ever had grandparents step in and work with grandchildren?
Absolutely. We have some of that. I've seen that on Amazon and some of our testimonies that have been sent in. They said, I want to do this with my grandkids. They're young grandparents. They are a big part of the life, but they have 10 grandkids. And they're like, I really want to be able to bond with them. And big holiday events and celebrations, they're awesome. I love them. I mean, I come from a huge family, but to get below the surface in real connection, it's pretty tough to do that in front of 12 other cousins, right? Or 12 other grandkids. So I've had a few grandfathers and a couple of grandmothers as well that have started to use this strategy with their grandchildren. And for me, it's a little nostalgic because I lost all my grandparents years ago. They lived long lives, but, into their 90s, but they're gone. I'm like, gosh, if I could have had one of these, just one, not only one a quarter or one a year, just one of these. I never had that kind of moment with my grandparent, ever. So they have started to use it. And we're with that, Jen, I can't even describe it. I don't know the science of it. We're digging into something deeper there, a real primal passing of the torch or connection of one of the coolest things I've heard is some of the struggles that one gentleman, Paul, I remember said he was going through at the age of 17, his 15-year-old grandson was going through, and they could actually talk about it. Yet there's 60 something years between them. Oh. So I think there's some sort of grounding effort there. So absolutely, this has been used there. And although I do weekly date night with my wife, I have very consistent rhythms, because if I don't set myself to rhythms, I fall apart, Jen. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm ADD. I need to have, okay, Wednesday is date night. Wednesday is date night. Wednesday is date night. I don't even have to think about it. My board meetings are scheduled with my kids. We have family meeting. We do daily 5-minute journal. These are like my pillars. And if I don't set them, I mess it up because I'm ADD. So, but I think that when we learn to lean and depend on these things, the kids can trust in them as well.
Awesome. And I think that's encouraging. I know we have grandparents in our community who would love to hear that message too. And I just think everything you're saying, you've just basically said there is nobody who could possibly be watching this that it would be too late to get started and do something. So I love that. Well, then let's jump in. There are 6 principles that you talk about with the family board meetings. Can we dive into those? Just give us a brief overview.
Yeah, well, do you want to go into all 6 or do you just want to go into the main principles? Because
let's go overhead broad, just the main ones, if that's easiest, just to give people that.
Yeah, because I want to make sure that we give them the full thing. One of the principles I talk about that I think is the most important is decompression. Everyone wants to connect with their loved ones, especially their son or daughter, but we're trying to do it at a busy table in the morning, with phones going and dogs barking and kids running here and there and going to that. That's not going to happen. What the board meeting strategy, like I said, getting together for 4 hours, uninterrupted, one-on-one without the phone on, brings about the principle of decompression, where we actually take this and we put our guard down and we decompress to the point where physically we are more open to communication. So that's a key element. Okay. A big thing, another principle of the board meeting strategy that makes it work is anticipation and reflection. I think that's probably one of the main ones that you wanted to go over. Was what I learned was, so a birthday comes once a year. That's great. But what I found for strengthening relationships, we have to have a healthy amount of anticipation and reflection. A year is too long. Especially with preteens and younger kids to do this. They can't look out that far as well or reflect off the last one as clearly. 90 days, which is used by tons of personal development groups, is a magic number. It really is. It's a magic number where they're going to really anticipate it, look forward to planning their next one. And it's still short enough distance around where they can remember their last one. You know, it's kind of, again, these pillars are, they're swinging from relationship vine to relationship vine with you. And if you wait, if you did one of these board meetings every day or every week, I'm not saying that they wouldn't still be valuable, but if your birthday was every week or every month, it loses some specialness to it. So again, that anticipation and reflection is absolutely key. And then scheduling. So if I had to tell you the number one reason why this fails is that which we schedule gets done. That which we schedule gets done. Right. When I've worked with, I did a call with a gentleman who was running a very large company. He said, I read your book. I love it. I wanted to do it. It's been a year. I haven't done a single board meeting with either of my children. I said, have you put it on the calendar? He said, no. I said, great. Get your assistant right now to pull up your calendar while we're here, put it on the calendar. A year later, he's done a board meeting every time, and it's going phenomenal. And that doesn't mean you have to be running a big business. We're all busy, whether we have our own assistant or we are our own assistant. That's right. That which we schedule gets done. If you are willing to put this on the calendar, it sounds silly, but again, we want to take away the barriers that can create failure. Success, really, half of it comes to saying, here's my calendar, and I'm putting it right on here for this date and that. This is like a meeting with my boss at work or my biggest client in my business. This is immovable. And you put it on there, and that can create huge effects. Because that is half the battle, literally in the busyness of life, getting it scheduled. Absolutely. So I think there's more that I can go into, but I know we have a lot to cover. Those are the 3 that if people just know that when you plug into this strategy, you're empowering the power of decompression. You're getting into a rhythm of your child feeling anticipation for the next one and reflection on the last one. And in order to get successful, that which we schedule gets done. That which we schedule gets done. So if you put it on the calendar, you're going to feel more excited. They're going to start planning for it. And the odds of it actually happening skyrocket, absolutely skyrocket.
Awesome. Well, along those lines then of the planning and the scheduling, so talk to us about the kinds of things maybe that you've done or others that you know have done. So if anyone's thinking, oh, how much money do I have to spend on this? Are we going to Disney World for the day? What kind of activities and who plans them? I mean, do the older teens plan them or do you, or how does that work?
Yeah. So let's, again, once a quarter for at least 4 hours, one-on-one without electronics. We're not going to go into that today, I don't think, but I can send you research after research. I love my phone. I mean, hey, we're talking from states away right now using technology. It's great, but it can overtake us if we let it. You got to disconnect to reconnect. The studies have been shown for true connection, true decompression, you got to disconnect to reconnect. So I try to do non-electronic activities. And my phone, in fact, I talk about it in the book, is never on for one of our board meetings. I always say to my sons, is my phone going to be on? They're like, nope. And they know that the only time I would turn it on, it's already on airplane mode because I want to commemorate one photo. But you got to get those pictures off. Now, with that fun activity, they choose. They create it. You want buy-in? We think as parents, we know what they want. We'll suggest something fun, and they might not think it's that great and go, okay, yeah. But if we say, look, you create the day, I want to be a part of it. Just let me know. That's going to let them have ownership. That's going to give them buy-in. That's going to let them use their creativity. And that's going to let us start to see into, well, what are they really interested in? What are some of the interests and passions that they have? I always let them plan the day. And this question of money and an expensive thing always seems to come up. But I've found that there's stuff that's cost me less than $15. I had to buy fishing bait to go with my son down to an area right off our little barrier island to a private little spot and go fishing for 4 hours. And you'll be surprised. Yeah, they might ask to go to something that costs some money, but that hasn't always been my experience with that. So I pretty much give them the open ability. I said, look, something that you would enjoy, something that you like. I don't say, I'd like to go shopping and buy this big gadget or something like that. That's not an option. I know some people go to the movies. I've chosen to say, I like going to the movies with my kids, but I don't really want to spend that time sitting there screen sucking. I want to be doing something interactionary, and that's up to them to choose it. But did you want me to give some examples of different things we've done?
Yes, I know you can tell us some of what you've done with your kids.
Anything from the lighthouse, which I talk about in the book, to the water slide, to fishing, to dune buggies, to hiking, to a beach day, to the Pirate Museum, to the Segway tours, to the football game, a semi-pro soccer game, which was $3 a ticket, to bigger ones where I did a 2-day trip with my son to Mexico to build houses with a group called Homes for Hope. That was a bigger one. I took my other son on a business trip with me that he had asked to go on because he was interested and knew some of the people going that were bringing their friends. So there are bigger ones that I've done, but then you can see there's more simple ones that I've done. Going on a bike ride through the local forest. I know that I just talked to the client who actually introduced us to Ziglar. He had to go to a Pokemon tournament with his 7-year-old son. There was a few dads that went to a fashion show with their daughters. They did a spa day, which was not for this gruff and rough and tumble guy.
Oh my goodness.
But he did a spa day. So it was, again, and I think there's a little testing there of this is what I really want to do. And when you buy in wholeheartedly and say, great, let's do it. there is a huge, huge appreciation. And it goes above, we have the best intentions, Jim, but let's say that you and I love antique cars. And you say, I'm going to bring my daughter to an antique car show. And you're like, come on, we're going. And you go for 4 hours. You drag her around this antique car show. You're excited because you get to see all these cars. She doesn't really care. And then at the end, you're kind of thinking, isn't this great that we bonded? And she's like, yeah, I kind of was just appeasing Mom. This really wasn't that fun. They don't want to hurt your feelings. When you let them choose and give the buy-in, you see what happens. Again, all those things that I named, they created. And it's cool to see them shine because, again, when they've created the day, they have ownership. And what I found is they're more willing to open up. And they're also more willing now to discuss their true interests and passions and things they might not have been comfortable talking about. Because, I have a child that's interested in science. I have a child that's interested in writing. Both of those can seem kind of weird at their ages, that I'm really interested in this. And it's tough to talk about still at my age, the things that I'm passionate about sometimes. This gives them that open space to do it.
And so to that end, you talk during the day, but you have a special and dedicated time at the end of the day that you use to wrap it up, to have that reflection. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, the focus reflection. So most of my board meetings kind of go like this. We leave the house, we'll go do the activity, we'll go grab a meal together, and then we'll be stopping someplace from the beach to this place to that to hang out and just relax. And then we might talk a little bit. That's it. That's all it looks like for me. And that focus reflection, people go, oh my gosh, focus reflection. That sounds like such a psychology term. I mean, do I need to be a family therapist? No. Again, experiential education is simply putting students or people into direct, inspiring experiences, and then at the end, saving time to talk and clarify values and the lessons that came out of the experience. And what I've found is experiential education has one question you start with, a focus reflection. You just say, hey, what was your favorite part of the day and why? Very non-aggressively, see what they say. That opens it up. And a focus reflection, you got to remember, you're probably listening to it. All the Ziglar people out there, maybe they're driving in their car right now. It's in between work moments. So you're a little more heightened. Just remember at this point, when you're ready for focus reflection, you've just already spent the time and shown the care to schedule this time with your kid. You've been together for almost 4 hours with your phone off one-on-one. You're going to be in a very decompressed state of open communication. Both of you, whether they realize it or not. Even with that said, a team might only open up for a few minutes, but that's a starting point. But I've found starting with that one question can really get the ball rolling. So don't overthink it. All it is time at the end to talk. And so my younger sons, when I started at 7 and 5, they would tell me the favorite part. And I would authentically say back, and I'll give this some tips, but I would say, they'd say, well, what was your favorite part of the day? I said, I just work really hard and I'm really busy. And to be able to cut off and watch you having fun with you and have this time alone together just means a lot to me. So just having this time with you is my favorite part.
Fantastic. Well, that's great. And I really am going to encourage everyone who's watching this. You've touched on some of the main points of it. You dive deeper in the book. It's really good, really good. And we'll make sure we tell them how to get it here at the end, and I'll post it on the posting. But I would just love to ask you, if you don't mind, to share a little story about how this really touched you. It was I think it was Alden, your son, yeah. Alden, or was it Leland? Just pick a story, but I know both of those stories were nice. I think Alden's was the really kind of touching one.
Yeah, that was a tough one for me to share. So when I met my wife, we hit it off right away. She was director of a Waldorf preschool. I had always had a big love for alternative education. We hit it off right away and fell in love. And when I won her heart, had the chance to win the heart of 2 beautiful little boys, because my wife was divorced with full custody. She had been for a number of years. And the boys and I hit it off famously right away, but they both had trust issues, and that was for good reasons, of things that happened before my time. And it would have been especially hard on my oldest son, Alden. And when I first met Alden, he was a terrible student, close to failing. He had been put on the spectrum at school, and I hate that word, the spectrum at school for autism. And he suffered every night from night terrors. And if you don't know what those are, you're lucky. It is a terrible thing where your children wake up in a half-conscious state, screaming, just absolutely terrified. It can take you hours to get them back to sleep. And call me naive, but I knew these situations could change. I had already been working with families more as the fun uncle, and now it was my turn as the dad stepping in. And I knew the principles of quality time. And that's when I started to put the principles of the family board meeting to work. And we saw a shift within the year, and a lot of the major breakthroughs happened in my one-on-one time with him throughout that first year. And 1 year later, my son went from failing to getting the award of the most improved student of the third grade. And he was absolutely beaming when he got the award. They retracted the diagnosis of autism. And admitted it was a mistake. I knew it wasn't autism. I mean, stress does crazy things. And so that had gone away. And probably best of all, within 1 year, the night terrors were completely gone. So for me, I couldn't even tell that story. And it was pretty uncomfortable when I first started being on stage in front of 500 people and breaking down crying, telling that story. But it meant that much to me. And I would have given up my entire real estate portfolio and business for those results, but I didn't have to. I put these principles to work, and I'd seen firsthand the power of quality time, of being able to build trust with using these principles. And that's when friends of mine said, you need to write a book. And I had no interest in writing a book, to be honest with you. But that was the catalyst story for me to say I'm being pretty selfish if I don't share these principles, because man, do they work. And it continues to snowball with just different results that I've heard. And it's meant the world to me, to my wife, to our family. And it's simple, it's fun, it's something you can keep up with, and it keeps a consistent rhythm in your life. So hopefully that's what it's going to be able to do for the Ziglar family. I'd like nothing more than to see it put into practice.
Well, I don't know how anybody could have been with us. We're getting close to 40 minutes and not just feel on fire, inspired by what you're sharing. I know I am, and I've already read the book, and this is just getting me even more excited. So I'm planning some one-on-one time with my oldest daughter, who's a senior, this weekend, and I'm very much looking forward to it. We're going out of town, Airbnb. I know we're going more than our 4 hours, but Mom's excited to jump in.
That's great. 4 hour minimum. You can go anytime over 4 hours. I mean, I have some that last a day and a half, 2 days, 3 days, but a 4 hour minimum to get started. So good for you.
And that's good. And that's a kind of a low manageable hurdle that I think most of us can say, okay, we can set aside 4 hours once every 90 days. I mean, that's just doable for everyone. And I think that's great. Well, you've shared so much, and I'll just give you, I can't think of anything else, but if you have just one more last minute tips or encouragements before we wrap it up.
If I could just give some tips real quick, some really important tips. When you start these board meetings, you might feel uncomfortable. That's okay. Stay totally present. Be vulnerable. Again, drop your guard. We always have our guard up. If you want your kids to open up, you got to do it first. If they ask you about times in your life you were uncomfortable, didn't you mess up? Admit it. Be honest. That was one of the best things I could ever do. And please do not use these board meetings as a chance to cram in your next 50 lectures that you had planned of how your child should be a better citizen, a better son or daughter, a better brother or sister. That will absolutely kill the moment. These are not times to be punishing. These are not times to be disciplining. These are not times to be lecturing. You will absolutely lose their trust and lose the potency of this strategy if you try to do that. It's not what it's about. It's not what it's about. So don't try to cram in 50 lectures. And lastly, just have fun. enjoy it. A currency of any person, I think, and hopefully it starts to reconnect with us older people, but anyone from age 5 to 25, they want to have fun. Be able to let go and have fun. You want your kids to open up, or you want to be better connected, surrender to a little bit of fun. You might surprise yourself, and you might definitely surprise your kids as well.
Awesome. That's great advice. And I think my biggest takeaway that I didn't necessarily pull from the book, but that you said today, was separate the parts to strengthen the whole. That's just an awesome concept that I've jotted on a sticky note. I'm going to stick up on my bulletin board here. So, well, thank you again for this. So just people are interested. They want to know more about Jim Sheils and what you do, find the book. How would you suggest they best connect with you?
Yeah, if they're interested, they can get the book on Amazon. They can also visit me at jimsheils.com or familyboardmeetings.com. They'll hear a little bit more about what I do, some of the rhythms, lessons, and experiences that I try to incorporate into our family, and again, the pinnacle one being the board meeting strategy.
And I will definitely put that link on the page where we post this. And you do retreats as well, right? I do retreats, family retreats, and workshops, and do some speaking around this now as well. So if I can help anyone out, happy to do so. Awesome. Well, it's been an honor and a privilege to spend time with you today, Jim, and to share your message with our community. And we will be looking for great things from you. You're starting a movement. We just need to watch it take root and go now. We'll see what happens. I'm excited, and I definitely care about it. So, and I know you guys do as well. So thank you for doing what you guys do. Thank you. All right. Well, we will see you guys next time then. Thanks for joining us for the Thrive Family Focus interview for December. Have a great day, you guys. Bye-bye. Bye.